On to the next segment, Carson Wentz. You know, we were going to go in order with these.
Wow, we really made this a topic. Interesting. All right.
No, we're not making this a topic.
Oh, okay, good.
We were going to go in order and do the NFC East from the top to the bottom.
So
but because the news came out about Carson Wentz going to Washington, we're going to start off with Washington first. So Washington finished 7-10 this past season. And big news, they just traded for Carson Wentz for 2 third-round picks, and they swapped second-rounders with the Colts, basically. Now, they're paying his full $28 million salary along with the $5 million bonus, which means that they only have $6 million in cap space this offseason, but they could cut Landon Collins, Matthew Ioannidis, Wes Schweitzer, and free up some more cap, but for the most part, they don't have much flexibility right now. So what do you think about the Carson Wentz trade? What do you think about the Commanders going into next season or going into this offseason and what they need the most? And are you a believer in this new look Carson Wentz with the Washington Commanders?
I'm a bit surprised they traded for Wentz because they made a hard push apparently to, Rappaport and whoever tweeted out that they offered 3 first-round picks to get Russ. And Russ, 2 reasons. One, Seattle wanted him out of the NFC, and Russ also wanted to go to Denver over the Commanders, which I can't blame him for. But I think this tells me more than anything that there must have been a pretty hot market for Carson Wentz because we know Deshaun Watson's case hearing is coming up this Friday, and whatever happens in that might clear up some speculation whether he's going to be able to play this upcoming year. So that tells me I think Washington was worried that another team was going to go out and trade for Wentz, and they wanted to get on it now, especially right after they traded for, or they missed out on Russell Wilson. So I think even though we had to talk off the show, I'm not a Carson Wentz truther. I don't think he's this top 12 quarterback. I just simply think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He's definitely better than Taylor Heineke. So any reason or any way you could upgrade quarterback, you absolutely do it. Giving up 2 third-round picks after the previous year, the Colts had to give up a first and a third. To me, that's a no-brainer.
Ended up turning into a first. Yep.
And yeah, because Wentz stayed healthy, and they have a similar deal in this one where the third could turn into a second. So if you give up a second and third, but what's good about Wentz's contract is next year they could get out of it with no dead money. So worst case scenario, you give up a second and third. It's kind of the same conversation we were having last year where, you give up a first, but if he becomes a franchise quarterback, it's worth it. This is a little less because you're giving up a second and third. You're not giving up that premium draft pick in the first round. And in this draft, they have the 11th overall pick. So they're able to go and get another difference maker, whether they want to go with receiver, or they have a few different needs, safety, linebacker. But I think receiver now, we've had plenty of debates about Terry McLaurin. Is Carson Wentz good enough to say he's got a quarterback?
Yes.
He's not.
No?
Yes.
So there's still an excuse for Terry that's quarterback's not good enough.
I have a question for you.
No.
Was Matt Schaub good enough to say that D-Hop had a quarterback?
You mean Andre Johnson?
And Hop, though.
Hop was with Schaub? Are you sure?
I think he played with Hop
sure.
like 1 or 2 years.
You might be right, but I don't know. I'll check.
Hop put up some crazy years.
I know.
With Schaub.
I know.
So if he could do it with Schaub, I hope that Terry could do it with Wentz.
I know. We're talking about DeAndre Hopkins here, though.
I know.
Well, he thinks Terry could have a top 5 season. So
if with the right quarterback, Carson Wentz is not the right quarterback, though.
Matt Schaub was the right quarterback?
Carson Wentz completes 62% of his passes.
What do you think Schaub completed?
More than 62.
I don't think it was that much higher than 62%. Because either way, they're both middle of the pack type guys. I think
career 64.2.
Sick.
Damn, that's good.
That 2%. That's like an extra pass per game.
Better.
It's like a pass per game.
I think McLaurin to have his best season of his career. With Wentz.
But I just want to know: is this quarterback good enough to say Terry has his quarterback? So
he's not.
Everyone.
Look, this is what I'm saying. Carson Wentz isn't
good enough. He had half
enough.
A season with rookie DeAndre.
Okay.
Carson Wentz is not good enough to say that. Oh, McLaurin, finally, he's with a good quarterback.
This is his best quarterback by far.
Yes. He's not. Carson Wentz is not good enough for me to say that. But Carson Wentz is his best quarterback, which is not saying much, bro. They've been having trash.
Nah, Terry's about to tweak this.
It's like Allen Robinson, the plethora of quarterbacks and terrible quarterbacks he's gone through. But outside of the quarterback position, I do think bringing another receiver for the Commanders makes sense.
I like that.
Terry's a stud. Curtis Samuel, they signed to a pretty big contract last year. He just wasn't really able to stay healthy. But we saw when he was on Carolina, he's a really explosive receiver. He could also run the ball, take jet sweeps, or even be out of the backfield in like this Debo light type of role. He's really explosive with the ball in his hands, but Adam Humphries is a free agent, so that third wide receiver role, I know they drafted Diami Brown last season, so maybe he could go into that. But I wouldn't hate taking a veteran or even a receiver at number 11 because there's a chance they might be able to get the first receiver off the board at 11. And if you could pair Terry McLaurin with another elite receiver, However, whatever your taste is, if you want the Garrett Wilsons, the Burks, the Londons, you'll be able to go and get your guy, your number one receiver.
Number one.
I'm saying number one off the board.
Okay.
I think it's possible. They might go earlier, but I think 11 could also be the first receiver off the board. It wouldn't shock me.
You want that to be the Jets?
I really don't think Washington needs to go receiver.
I don't think they have to. I think it's an option for them.
I'll tell you what, I'd be way more excited if they went wide receiver than any other position.
No,
right now,
they need a linebacker right now.
Yeah, I was getting to.
But there's not a great linebacker here at 11.
Or are they going to take an inside linebacker at 11?
That's what I'm saying.
That's the only thing.
At 11 is what I'm wondering.
Nakobe Dean is a stud.
He's a stud.
He's a monster.
Sure. He's for sure. But if you're telling me, would you rather have a stud inside linebacker or a stud receiver? I'm taking the stud receiver.
For what they need, I'd take the linebacker. They really need
their defense was great 2 seasons ago.
But their receiving core is mid outside of Terry.
Curtis Samuel was hurt last year.
Adam
but he's
Humphries.
Coming back. Adam Humphries, he's not going to be back.
He's
going
to be a free agent. Diamond Brown had some
McLaurin,
moments.
Samuel, Logan Thomas, that's just fine.
J.D. McKissick's also a free agent who's been
this
really
NFL,
solid in the last 2 years.
You want a plethora of wide receivers.
Bro, we say that because like the Bengals did this outlier thing, but
Rams,
you have to have a balanced team. The Rams they won it without OBJ. He got hurt, bro.
They signed Odell before Robert Woods got hurt. It was the day before.
I know, but they never had all three of them together.
But they wanted to. They had Woods and Cup, and they said, we're still going to sign Odell.
It's not about wanting to or not wanting to. It's about like what happened, and they won it without the plethora of this offensive.
I think especially when you don't have an elite quarterback, like Josh Allen's an exception because he really just has Diggs, even though you guys are really high in Gabe Davis. If you don't have that elite quarterback,
into this season, take it easy, kid.
If you don't have an elite quarterback, I'd want that outside receiver who could get open or win 50-50
He doesn't
balls.
just have Diggs, bro. Like, come on, let's.
Dawson Knox, Cole Beasley, and
be nice to Dawson. He's nice.
They're good. Yes,
he's nice.
Cole Beasley had 1,000 yards, bro. Not this past season, but in 2019, before they got Diggs, he had 1,000 yards.
3 years ago.
Bro, and even in 2020, he had a big time year with Diggs. Like, why are we acting like he has nothing? Like,
I look at the other wide receiver twos around the league, and Cole Beasley's not as good as
Cole
Higgins.
Beasley's a slot. It's a different position.
But still being your number 2 option, not maybe outside number 2, but your second best receiver.
Well, even with that, even if you want to say that, like I know name brand wise, maybe Cole Beasley, I'll take more guys over him. But the production he gave you, it was worth it. Like he produced. What I'm saying is that for the Washington, bro, last year their defense fell off.
It was terrible.
Horrible.
It was terrible.
The reason for that is not the defense. The defensive line is fine. We know the defensive line is great. It's because they didn't have any corners. Like outside of Kendall Fuller,
William Jackson
was a disappointment.
Huge disappointment.
St. Just as a rookie couldn't really rely on him. Their safeties Cam Curl, Landon Collins. Like I like Cam Curl. He was like underrated as a rookie.
I thought he was a lot better as rookie than this past year.
Yeah, but he didn't play too well. And then linebackers, they had the worst linebacking core in the NFL. Jamin Davis was somebody that out of college had all this potential athleticism. He's off the charts, but he just didn't transit to the NFL right away. That's why I think at 11, you got to go with a corner or you got to go with a linebacker. Nakobe Dean out of Georgia is my first pick if I'm Washington, if he's there. Nakobe Dean could change around that defense and make them be able to cover tight ends now and cover slots and cover running backs out the backfield.
If Sauce is there, you take him, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He won't be there, but I'd even take a look at Stingley. Even though
Stingley's not going to be there either. Then
he will be there. Stingley will be there at 11.
And then they hit a lick.
I also think
Stingley will be there at 11.
I think
and they're lit.
You could really make the argument for receiver though,
because like if Drake London, Garrett Wilson are there. That is too intriguing for me to pass up.
There will be there. One of them.
But if Sauce is there, I would take Sauce over all of them.
I would also take Sauce.
But they've also been talking about
I don't think he's gonna be there.
They've been talking about Amari Cooper going to Washington if he gets released.
End of the day, though, I think we in agreement they need another receiver.
They need a weapon.
I think they need another receiver, but
you just don't think they need.
I'm talking about like
premium.
in the draft. If I'm between Nakobe Dean and between like one of these top receivers, I'd go with a linebacker because I think they can find a receiver later in the draft. There's more depth at receiver in this draft than I think there is linebackers.
And I feel like the difference between this year and last year, where we're looking at the Commanders in reference to the Bengals, how you mentioned earlier, the difference there was Jamar Chase was the generational talent.
For sure.
Here, Garrett Wilson, we spoke about it. There's no consensus wide receiver 1. If we had to lean one, probably Garrett Wilson. However, there is no consensus wide receiver 1. For me personally, I still think Jameson Williams could be the best, but you can't risk that high draft pick on him given the injury history.
I mean, just last year Washington fucked up because at pick 19, they drafted Jamin Davis.
Yeah, that was
it. Should have been JOK. And at the time, I was like, they missed out on JOK.
Fell to the second round.
Yeah, JOK fell, and now he's gonna be he's gonna be a great linebacker. Like, we know he's gonna be great. So they messed up there, but I just feel like they need to. The reason why they were so great in 2020 was because their defense was elite.
Their pass rush.
They need to get back to that.
They also lost
Chase Young.
Yeah, they lost Chase Young.
Yeah, and Chase Young will be back
midway through the season, I want to say.
And they need corner too. They need a slot.
Definitely need a corner.
William Jackson, even though he didn't play well, he's not gonna get replaced. He's staying.
Do you consider trading up a few spots to get Kyle Hamilton?
They would have to trade up a lot to do that.
A lot, you think? I'm seeing mock drafts of him going to the 10th.
Yeah.
The 10th.
I don't think there's not a consensus on him. Like, I've seen him at
feel
3,
like
I've seen him at 10.
If I'm Washington, I just address the slot. So I try to go get a Bryce Callahan or a Chris Harris or a Desmond
They
King.
really don't have that much cap, though. And it's tough for them to clear
They
cap also.
They have $6 million. They can clear $14 million by releasing Landon Collins and Matthew Ioannidis. Matthew Ioannidis, he's replaceable because they already have Jonathan Allen, Duron Payne, Chase Young, Montez Sweat.
Right. Yep.
They're good. They could save $14 million and then have about $22 million in cap space if they also release Wes Schweitzer, who wasn't that good anyway last year. So they can clear up around like $20 million plus.
I think if they cut Eric Flowers as well, they'd save $10 million.
I wouldn't do that. Eric Flowers is really good now.
He's a solid guard.
He's really good now. So that's why, like, I feel like Washington, just to talk about this Wentz thing, if they don't win the division, it's a disappointment.
Such a high expectation when they're in the division with Dallas.
They're in the division. They're in the NFC West.
Dallas isn't
not East.
Yeah.
Oh, NFC East. My bad.
Dallas. I don't see Dallas as this juggernaut that you can't get past. They're not a KC. They're not a Buffalo.
Hold up, bro. If Dallas
Green Bay.
If Dallas releases Amari Cooper, what are your thoughts on Dallas?
They're gonna release Amari.
I'm concerned about their wide receivers, but I'm not overly concerned where I still don't think they can win the division.
I think they'll be favorites to win the division, but I agree. Washington has to think we can win the division.
I ask you guys a question.
Because let's be honest, Jameson Williams could go to Dallas.
They could take a receiver. You know what's funny? Jerry Jones loves Arkansas receivers. Treylon Burks could go.
Interesting.
Yes.
But do you think Treylon would be there at 24? He could be.
He could be.
Yeah.
Taylor Heineke went 7-8 last season with Washington. How much better of a quarterback is Carson Wentz?
He's a significant upgrade.
I'm with that.
So why is it too much for me to ask to win 10 games if you're Carson Wentz or 11 in the NFC East?
Yeah, 10 to 11, you're competing for that division for sure.
Fair enough.
That's what I'm saying.
I agree.
For sure.
I just have Dallas, which is why I say that. I know, it's like, that's tough.
I know everybody's trashing Washington making this move. They missed out on Russ. They missed out on Aaron. I don't think they wanted to wait for Deshaun Watson or Jimmy G. So they pulled the trigger on Wentz. Now, Wentz is a stopgap, though. Like, they have to continue to look for quarterbacks because he's not a franchise guy. He's a mid-tier quarterback who, a report from Zach Kiefer from The Athletic, he wrote an article about inside the Colts and the mess with Carson Wentz, and everybody in the locker room consensusly pretty much is like, his leadership's not there, wasn't able to be coachable. 6 of his 7 interceptions came in the second half. He completes 62% of his passes. He's inaccurate. He's sporadic. I mean, everybody wanted Carson Wentz gone, bro. I mean, this isn't... I feel like right now...
Darius Leonard seemed to like him.
Teams continue to give Carson Wentz a chance.
That's
being the Colts...
The leader of the team.
Correct.
The Colts took a chance on Carson Wentz. They regretted it. It's the worst decision they've made in their franchise in the last, 10, 20 years?
Not getting luck at O-line, releasing Peyton Manning...
Releasing Peyton Manning was whatever because they got Andrew Luck. Like, it wasn't a terrible decision.
I also feel like that was mutual. Payton's coming off neck injuries. It's not like there was like prime Peyton. They're like, yeah, see you later.
I don't know if Peyton wanted to stay. They could have made it work. However, Andrew Luck not giving no lines inexcusable.
Yeah,
Carson Wentz, the Colts before Week 17 had a 97% chance of making the playoffs.
Absolutely.
90-freaking-7, and he choked. It was a disaster class. They missed it. But even before that time, Frank Reich, Chris Ballard, Jim Irsay were already like, we're out on Carson Wentz. We don't want him back next season. Washington took a huge risk for getting Carson Wentz.
I mean, they gave up 2/3. That might be a second.
It's not that big of a risk.
It's a huge risk because you're bringing in a guy who the leadership quality isn't there. Like, say what you want. I know that he's a better quarterback than Taylor Heineke, but Taylor Heineke has that kind of it factor about him in terms of leadership,
He has
in
confidence.
terms of rallying around his teammates. This can either be the Washington Commanders, like they win 10, 11 games, which I'm expecting them to do, or it can be a 5-win season.
But even still, all of those issues that the Colts had, they still won 8 games. And they were right there to make the playoffs, and they just collapsed those last 2. So even if his leadership skills aren't there, it's not like the Colts were this laughingstock who won 4 games.
They had the most Pro Bowlers in the NFL of any team.
I know, but the Washington has the talent. The defense 2 years ago was
like the
arguably
Colts,
the
though.
best in
Not
the
like
year, best in the league.
It was the best in the league that year for a lot of reasons. One of the main reasons being that they had a very easy schedule.
They also have a great pass rush if everyone's healthy.
And that's
great front
for
seven,
sure,
yeah.
for
And they
sure.
gave a
But
good
it wasn't
game to the Super
until
Bowl champions. That
it
year.
wasn't until this past season where they had that first place schedule. Yeah, the defense got
Drew's right.
exposed early.
They let up 19 points, 16 points to Tampa Bay in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, they were one of the better defensive performances.
they almost
against
lost.
the
Like,
I'm not disagreeing with you, but at the same time, they came into this past season as
higher expectations.
Yes,
their defense was horrible.
it was terrible.
It was terrible. That's what I'm saying. Like the Colts had the most Pro Bowlers of any team in the NFL, and if Carson Wentz, there's a strong possibility he's just a complete disaster in Washington.
I don't think he's going to be a disaster.
Do you know Washington's offensive lines rank?
Their
off the top
offensive
of your
line
head?
is really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that with Brandon Sheriff being a free agent though?
He's
Brandon Scherf was one of the worst ones on their offensive line this past season. Eric Flowers is better than him.
Interesting.
Chase Roller, their center, was better than him.
Brandon Sheriff's the highest paid.
Sam
guard in the
Cosmi was
league.
better than him. Was rookie right tackle.
So you don't think they're bringing back Sheriff?
They don't have to.
Interesting.
They don't have to.
He's the highest paid guard, and he's
also
mid?
missed a lot of injury.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
missed a lot of time due to injury. Not last year, but throughout his career.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this could end up being a disaster for them. You know, it can. But my expectations is that with Carson Wentz, with this roster he has, he should win 10 games, bro. I don't feel like there's any excuse.
Yeah.
But because I don't trust Carson Wentz, you probably won't get there.
I don't trust Wentz either, but I think that 10 wins, should be their goal.